This weekend, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald hit theaters. That means today we're going to stop and rank all 10 films in the wizarding world from the worst to the best. Hi, if you're new here, I started this channel essentially because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place. And with that in mind, go ahead and give me your ranking down below in the comment section. We're going to disagree, and that's the fun part because we can talk about why. Also, as I give my ranking, it's based off the movies themselves, not the books. And one final thing, this shirt that I'm wearing is one of the new t-shirt designs from my merch store. There's a huge sale this week that's 30% off everything in the TeePublic site, and that means $14 t-shirts. You can check that out at the link down in the description, and with that said, let's get started. Coming in last place is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This adaptation of the penultimate novel comes off like a meandering information dump that exists purely to set up the finale. It's heavy on backstories and information and plot devices, but it actually has a fairly weak central narrative. You do kind of have the mystery about the Half-Blood Prince, but even the reveal of that in the end of the film feels very underwhelming. Also, for being the next to last story in the saga, it's a little bit odd how little Voldemort is in the movie. In a lot of ways, this film reminded me of the storytelling of the first two films in the franchise with the way it handled the side quests and subplots. But unlike those two films, this one is so drab and dark, often literally, that it sucked a lot of the joy even out of these mini side quests. They also took some creative risks with the look of the film, and I think that pays off really well when it comes to them diving into the memories and the way they visualize the storytelling in those elements of the film. However, when it comes to the overall desaturated look of the film, it was so over the top that it was more distracting to me than a way to creatively visualize the fact of the growing darkness inside of the world. Overall, the film is too unfocused, grim, and information-based to spark the excitement that most of the films in the franchise elicit. Coming in at number 9 is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, or Harry Potter and the Missing Barber, as every guy in this movie is going seriously shaggy. This movie has some great and iconic moments, whether you're talking about watching our characters grow up, go to the dance, Hermione's entrance, you get Harry battling a dragon, you finally get to see Voldemort in physical form, or the satisfaction of getting to watch Edward Cullen getting murdered. But the whole film felt like they cranked up the teenage angst way too high, way too fast. Everyone is mad at each other, there's bitterness, there's envy, our trio has a bunch of infighting. Hermione has the same sucking on a lemon scowl the entire film except for 5 seconds during the dance. You can count it down on your fingers, and then she gets annoyed with Ron again and starts to scowl again. For me, when the cast is this broody, they're just not very likable or fun to spend time with. Add to that a plotline where a teenager is actually murdered by adults, and it makes for a weird tonal mix. And with a film that's almost 2 hours and 40 minutes long, it's more exhausting than exciting. At number 8 is Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. The second film in the Fantastic Beasts films wisely moves the setting back to Europe, and this makes for more natural connections to the Harry Potter films, which gives us a bunch of opportunities to kind of go deeper into the lore of things we've seen before, but we get to see them from a new perspective and at a different time frame. And a big part of this is the inclusion of Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and I thought they had just the right amount of Dumbledore for the story they were telling, and I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that I actually really liked Johnny Depp as Grindelwald. Also, it's a ton of fun for me to see the quirky Newt Scamander in the lead role. He's just a fun character for me. The problem here is the story, more like the subplots. Every single character has a subplot, a backstory, and multiple nuanced connections to other characters' backstories and subplots. With such complicated webs of plot lines, relationships, red herrings, it's difficult to know what really matters inside of the story. Also, the final twist and reveal in the film raises so many questions that it's not a very satisfying answer. When the movie just focused on its main plot and characters, I had a lot of fun with it, but unfortunately there's way too many detours. Coming in at number 7 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. It feels an awful lot like part 1 of this finale unfortunately got the short end of the stick when it came to splitting the book in two. Inherently, when you make a story that's entirely about the setup portion of a book, that means that you have a movie that feels like all the moving pieces are moving towards a payoff, which is obviously not in this movie. Now, there are some great moments in this film, whether you're talking about the excellent chase through the Muggle world at the beginning of the film, or the character moments in the forest, like when you have Harry and Hermione dancing, and certainly the third act has some gut punch moments when a certain character dies. But the main body of the story feels directionless and lacking forward momentum. Stuff happens, we are told time is passing, but there's no sense of urgency or forward movement. Given the way this plays out, I suspect this material would have been a lot more engaging and easier to follow if they hadn't split the book in two, and instead this material was the first 90 minutes of a 3-hour movie. Coming in at number 6 is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. This introduction to this new Fantastic Beasts franchise does a really nice job of introducing us to some new enjoyable characters who are quite different from the characters that we loved from the previous franchise. Newt Scamander has such a quirky way about him that it gives him a unique likability. He's teamed up with a new group of characters that have really nice chemistry amongst them. When the story is a whimsical tale about Newt's fantastic beasts escaping and discovering where to find them, it's a fun adventure that gives us a new perspective on the wizarding world. Unfortunately, it's also about the search for Grindelwald and Credence's abusive foster mother, and this makes for some very dramatic tonal shifts that don't go well together at all. At one point in time, it cuts from a scene of child abuse and someone being vengefully murdered with a belt to a lighthearted, humorous scene about tracking down creatures. Those two things don't taste great served side by side. It also ends with a really forced Scooby-Doo style villain reveal that I could have done without. But overall, this is a really fun adventure with characters that I enjoy. I just wish that's what the whole movie was. Bringing us into the top 5 is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Our second year at Hogwarts gives us a much clearer narrative than its predecessor, and also a better mystery. Since we don't have to set up the universe, we get to spend the whole movie with our trio on their adventure. It also gives us a much better glimpse into who Voldemort is and where he came from. The film also adds 3 great characters in Dobby, Lucius Malfoy, and Gilderoy Lockhart, the latter 2 played by 2 fantastic actors. Branagh Lockhart in particular just adds some great levity into the film. He's such a scene stealer every single time he appears on screen. And Dobby provides some of the best laughs in the series for me, which should tell you a little bit about my sense of humor.
Dobby feels most aggrieved, sir. Dobby had to iron his hands.
Where the film struggles is the length. They took the second shortest book and made the longest movie. And given the narrative that they're telling, as well as the target audience, it's just too long, dragged out, and meandered. Still, it's a very fun, lighthearted adventure from before the series got more serious. Coming in at number 4 is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone in the original British edition. The first journey into J.K. Rowling's Wizarding World whisks us away with incredible world building as well as great casting of these iconic characters. If you stop and think about it, they took a huge risk by casting these 10-year-old actors for this potential, and as it turns out, actual massive franchise, but it turns out they nailed it. Also, with the adult actors, they cast A-list great talent across the board. Of course, you can talk about the late great Alan Rickman as Snape, but even smaller characters like Nearly Headless Nick is played by great talent. But the real star here is Hogwarts and J.K. Rowling's Wizarding World. Her attention to detail from beginning to end in creating this world is fantastic, except when it comes to the scoring system for Quidditch. That could use a little bit of work. But Christopher Columbus brings her world to vivid life in the film. Now, some of the special effects look a little bit dated, and our child actors aren't quite at 100% yet.
No, you've made a mistake. I mean, I can't be a wizard.
Likewise, the actual story itself about the Sorcerer's Stone feels a bit like an afterthought, but none of this really matters all that much when you're having so much fun exploring this world. Real quick, before I give you my top 3, remember to give me your ranking down below in the comment section. Tell me which ones you love, which ones you hate, and everything in between. Also, after this video, check out this playlist up above that has all of my reviews of the Harry Potter films, or if you're into my rankings, I got a playlist up there with my best and most up-to-date rankings of the most popular franchises of today. If you enjoy this video, one of those 2 playlists will have something that you love. Kicking off the top 3 is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. When it comes to just the story, this is probably my personal favorite. Throughout these films, I've always wanted to see Harry step up into a leadership role, and we finally get that in this film. As the forces of evil start to rise, Harry Potter starts to train Dumbledore's army. Early on, the film establishes a great villain in Dolores Umbridge. This is one of these characters that you just love to hate. Therefore, there's so much satisfaction when you get to see the twins tormenting her in Hogwarts, and then when she eventually gets what's coming to her in the forest. Likewise, it builds to a great finale where we get some amazing wizarding action, some actual stakes, and a death that packs some serious emotional punch. What holds this one back is that it feels like I'm watching the Cliff Notes or abridged version of a far more in-depth story. It flies through plot points left and right at breakneck speed to try and cram it all in. If the storytelling matched the story, this would probably be my number 1. Our runner-up is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Whereas Part 1 felt like it was plagued by being a setup movie, this movie benefits from feeling like it's 100% payoff. And not just payoff for this story, but for the entire Harry Potter saga. After 7 prior films, we finally get the showdown between Harry and Voldemort, light and dark, and it lives up to the buildup. The scale is massive, the destruction and death are heartbreaking, and the moments of victory are just as satisfying as they should be. And it's not just Harry that gets the big moments, even the often dopey Neville gets to be the hero. But it's not just the action that pays off, it's also the twists and turns and reveals, whether you're talking about the revelations inside of Snape's memories or the truth about the final Horcrux. Each of these feel earned and worthwhile. And as this is Harry's saga, we get to see him fulfill his hero's journey, even with the Christ-like death and resurrection. This is one of those franchises that really does end on a satisfying high note. But coming in at number 1 is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. The 3rd trip to Hogwarts brought us a new director and also one of the best and most focused films. Now, I'm a sucker for time travel stories, so naturally this story appealed to me, but it's not just that I like this type of story. This movie does a great job of balancing the individual story and feeling like we're in the adventure with them while also capturing the passing of time as we're watching a school year. Add to the mix, we get another great character played by another great actor in Sirius Black played by Gary Oldman. But the real secret here is Alfonso Cuarón's direction. Whereas Columbus brought this youthful energy, Cuarón brings this auteur's creative flair. The story is great, the storytelling is fantastic, and the movie just has a fun sense of adventure, so for me, it comes in at number 1. Be sure to check out one of those playlists to the left, either the one with my Harry Potter reviews or my rankings of the most popular franchises of today. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.